makes use of type checking as a mechanism for proof checking. So underlying COC is a functional programming language. Okay, this is what we are going to look at in this lecture. So what we have is a typed functional language. There are values like 42 for example, and it has a type NAT. Okay. Similarly, the value true has a type bool. Okay. You can define compound types like the Cartesian product, which captures elements which are ordered pairs of the constituents. So 42 comma true, the ordered pair 42 comma true belongs to the type NAT star. Okay. We can also define functions. So this expression that we see here. This denotes that function which maps x to x plus. Okay. So it is of type NAT arrow NAT. So functions from NAT to NAT. Okay. The arrow is written using minus and greater. Okay. So all these are values and all of them have their own types. Let's demonstrate the type checking in COC inside the proof general mode. So the first thing is we check the type of 42. So it says that 42 is a NAT, the response of. Okay. Let's check the type of true. It is Boolean. The ordered pair is of type NAT star bool, and this function, the function that maps x to x plus 1, is of type NAT arrow NAT. The functions from NAT to NAT. The constant function that maps x to true is a function from NAT to bool. Okay. If we try to check some nonsensical thing, so something like this, okay, then it shows that there is a type error. So it says that true is a boolean while it is expecting a NAT. On the other hand, if you give 42 plus 2, that is. We saw two basic types, NAT and boolean, defined in COC. Okay, this is defined in the standard library of COC. What we do now is to show how you can build your own versions of boolean and natural numbers. Okay, so let's start with the boolean, which is the simplest. We define boolean by using defining it as an inductive type. Okay, so how do we do that? We define inductive, name of the type, which is boolean, is equal to, and then we enumerate the possibilities of boolean. Okay, boolean can be either be true or it can be be false. These be true and be false are called the constructors of the boolean type, and these are the only two possibilities for boolean. Okay. The result of doing this definition is that a new type is created called boolean. Okay, and two constants be true and be false are created. Each of them are distinct constants of the type boolean. Okay. The inductive keyword above means that these are the only ways to create a boolean type using one of these constructors, be true and be false. Let us try our own boolean type on the COC interpreter. Here is the inductive definition. Let's compile it. You see boolean is defined and now we can check this constant be true, and it does say it is boolean. Okay. Similarly, we can check be false, that's the other constructor of boolean, and it tells us that be false is also of type boolean. The fact that boolean is inductively defined using these two cases means that we can define boolean functions by doing a case-by-case analysis. Okay. Let's look at the examples. So the first function we look at is not of a boolean. Okay. So this is how we do it. Definition, keyword again, yellow in color. Name of the function, p naught. The first argument is b of type boolean, and it results in a boolean. Okay. And how do we define it? Equal to. The equal to tells that we are defining this function. Okay. What do? We match b, and there are only two possibilities, right? So we have to say if b is true, what should we give, and if b is false, what should we give. So match b. If b matches b true, then it is false, and if it matches b false, it is b true. Okay, this is the not function. Similarly, the AND of two booleans, a and b are booleans, so it takes two arguments. Notice that when there are two consecutive arguments of the same type, we can write it sequentially like this: b and a b colon boolean. It returns a boolean. You match a, and if it is B true, then the result is B, otherwise it is false. Okay, so this underscore here is called a wildcard pattern. It means that match in any case. Okay, these matches are tried one after the other. So the way Coq works is, when you give it an argument B, it first checks whether B looks like B true. Okay, if it is, then it returns false. It matches the value that is there in this branch is returned. Otherwise it returns. Otherwise it goes to the next line, matches the pattern, and goes on. Here what happens is, the second line says no matter what A is, that is why this wildcard underscore is there. No matter what A is, give false. But before that, if A is true, you look at B. Okay. So this is how you define functions by case analysis. It's called pattern function definition by pattern matching. So let's just look at it in the Coq interpreter. Okay. So here is your B naught function, and here is B, and let's do some computation. Compute B naught of let's say B true. Okay, you get B false. Just to illustrate, B naught of true. Of course, they should give an error because true is bool, the standard library boolean. What it expects is our boolean. Okay, so B naught. Let's say B. Okay, so let's do an AND computation. B AND of B true, B false. Okay, so we give B false. So it computes all this. Okay, the compute keywords tells it to evaluate instead of just checking. So if you check instead of this B and, it will not evaluate it, it will just tell you the type of it. Okay, checks for the type. We saw that booleans were defined by enumerating the possible boolean values. Of course, this will not work with a type like natural numbers because natural numbers are infinite. So how do we handle this? In mathematics, you might have seen a recursive definition of natural numbers. You define by saying that natural numbers consist of 0, okay, and if A is a natural number, then so is the successor of A, okay, which we denote by suc of A. These two, and this natural number is the smallest such set, which means that the natural numbers are 0, that is by assumption 1, suc of 0, that's because of rule 2, suc of 0 because suc of 0 is a natural number, and you apply suc to it, you will get another natural number. Okay, so this is how natural numbers are defined. Precisely that way we can define the inductive type of natural number. So inductive nat equal to, and then we say the first case is 0 is a nat. Okay, 0 is of type nat, and the second thing says that suc is a function from nat to nat. So successor give, if n is a nat, the other way to see it is that if n is a nat, suc of n is a nat. Okay, so these are the only two possibilities of creating nat. There are two cases only. Of course, there are infinitely many natural numbers, but they fall in any one of these two cases. Okay, the fact that we talk about the smallest such type is actually captured by the inductive type. So the inductive out here means that the smallest type which is defined through these cases. So you should not see them as one particular value, but rather the two different cases, two different kinds of values. Okay, so that in that sense you have to see. Since nat is also inductively defined, we can define functions by taking that by doing pattern matching, just like in the case of Boolean, except that now we have to be slightly careful in the sense that we have to look at recursive nature of nat. Okay, so let's look at addition, which is the simplest function that you can think of, simplest non-trivial function. So how is addition defined on nat? It is defined by two rules, right? 0 plus x is not 0, is x. Okay, that's the first rule, and the second rule says successor of x plus y is same as is the same as successor of x plus y. Okay, so this is the this is how we define recursively plus. Okay, this recursive nature is captured by this keyword called fixed point. Okay, so instead of definition plus, we use the word fixed point plus. Okay, so the fixed point is to say that plus is actually recursively defined. Okay, so fixed point plus takes a b type NAT, a and b of type NAT, and returns a NAT. Okay, how is it defined? You match on a. Okay, match on a. If a is 0, then plus of ab is b, just like the rule 1. Okay, and if a is successor of some ap, then plus is successor of plus applied on ap and b. So you see that plus has been recursively used here. Okay, and this captures the informal notion of recursive definition here. Okay, so let's have a look at it. Okay, so we have the natural numbers. Okay, and natural addition. Yeah, so let's try it out. Compute, let's say, let's define some things. Define 2 is sub 0. Okay, so we have 2, and let's compute 2 plus 2. And we see that it is 4. Define the plus function. Let's prove two theorems about plus. Okay, the first theorem says that 0 is a left identity of plus. Okay, so we do this by using the theorem vernacular command, the name of the theorem, which is left identity, colon, and the theorem that we want to say, that is for all n plus of 0 n equal to n. Okay, so let's send this to the Coq interpreter. Now look at this goals window. You will see a line here, and the statement that you want to prove underneath this line. Okay, the things under the line is things that you need to prove, and things above the line is what you already have. Okay, the proof of left identity is rather trivial, so let's handle it. We handle it using the tactic called trivial, and this completes the proof. Okay, so the left identity proof is straightforward. The right identity proof is not direct, it's not trivial. So again, we define right identity to be for all n in NAT plus of n0 is n. Okay, so this is the right identity theorem. If you try to do a trivial proof for this will not work. Okay, it says if you try to do that, it will say that you try to prove, save an incomplete proof. Okay, the reason for this difference is that the fact that 0 is a left identity follows directly from the definition of plus. You can see that in the definition of plus, when a is 0, that is when you are doing plus of 0b, by this definition itself it is clear that it is b. Okay, on the other hand, it is not clear from the definition that plus of n0 is n. Okay, so that we need to prove, and this we prove by making use of induction. Okay, so first we introduce this variable n. Now notice our goal has changed. We just have to prove plus of n0 is n, and what we are given? We are given a natural number n. Okay, so now we do the induction on this n. So let's do that induction. Now we see this is the base case and this is the induction step. Okay, so let's handle the base case first. I put a hyphen to say okay, let's concentrate on the base case. In the base case, we just have to prove plus of 0 is 0. Again, this follows from the definition, so we can just do a trivial and it will be done. Okay. Now we come to the induction hypothesis. You see, we have with us a natural number n, and the inductive hypothesis that plus of n0 is n. Okay. Our target is to show the goal plus of successor of n0 is successor of n. Okay, these two we have, and this we need to prove. Okay. Okay, so what we do is we simplify plus of successor of n0. By definition, it is clear on simplification. We know that the plus of successor of n0 is successor of plus of n0. This we followed by doing a simplification. Now what we do is we rewrite this plus of n0 as n using the integration hypothesis. So that is a rewrite tactic. So it rewrote plus of n0 to be n. So we ended up with a goal which said we need to prove successor of n equal to successor of n, and this is a trivial thing, and so we don't have we dispose it off with a trivial tactic, and that completes the proof of the right identity theorem. Right identity